Reborn. I let the Ice Prince help the school beauty cheat. The last thing Adrian Cole ever said to me in my first life was not an apology, it was not my name, it was not a plea for forgiveness, or a promise that the ambulance was on its way, it was, now you know how Sienna felt when you destroyed her future. I was on the kitchen floor of the townhouse we had bought together after graduation. One hand was pressed beneath the curve of my stomach, the other was reaching toward the phone he had kicked under the dining table. Pain tore through me in waves so violent that the ceiling lights blurred into white streaks. Adrian, I gasped. Please, something is wrong. The baby. He sat on the grey sofa with his elbows resting on his knees. Still wearing the charcoal suit that made strangers turn to look at him in elevators, at 30, he had kept the same beautiful, distant face that had made him Westbridge High's untouchable Ice Prince. Dark hair, pale grey eyes, a mouth that rarely smiled and never explained itself. Once, I had believed his coldness meant restraint. I had mistaken silence for depth and indifference for loyalty. That night, there was nothing restrained about the satisfaction in his eyes. If you hadn't interfered senior year, he said, Sienna and I would have gone to Harvard together. She wouldn't have lost everything. I wouldn't have spent the last 12 years wondering what my life should have been. A contraction crushed the air from my lungs. I curled around my stomach, trying not to scream. You chose not to help her cheat, I whispered. I warned you, but you chose. His expression hardened. You always knew how to make the selfish choice sound reasonable. He had taken my phone when I first asked him to drive me to the hospital. He had disconnected the landline. Outside, rain hammered the windows and washed the street in silver. Our nearest neighbor was away for the weekend. Adrian had planned the isolation with the same precision he had once used to solve calculus proofs. I understood then that this was not a moment of anger. It was revenge he had carried quietly through college, through our wedding, through every anniversary dinner and every gentle hand he had placed on my back in public. He had married me while loving the ghost of another girl. He had waited until I was helpless to punish me for saving him. The room faded at the edges. I thought of my mother's voice on the phone that morning, asking whether I had packed the hospital bag. I thought of the tiny yellow socks folded inside it. I thought of the daughter I had not yet met. Then I thought of Sienna Blake at 18, leaning across a cafe table and asking Adrian to risk his future for hers. In my first life, I had stopped him. In my second, I would not. When I opened my eyes again, there was no rain against the townhouse windows, no wedding ring on my hand, no child beneath my heart. There was sunlight on the trophy case outside Westbridge High's library and the familiar smell of dry erase markers, floor polish, and cafeteria pizza. Adrian stood in front of me in his Navy school blazer at 18. He was already 6'2", broad-shouldered from swimming, and so handsome that half the girls in school treated his rare glances like prizes. Teachers praised his perfect grades, coaches praised his discipline, students called him the Ice Prince because he never seemed flustered, never chased attention, and never openly cared about anyone except me. Everyone thought we had grown up on the same street, our mothers were friends. He had walked me to school since middle school, carried my books when I sprained my wrist, and waited outside every debate tournament without ever admitting that he was there for me 3 weeks before the SAT. He had asked me to be his girlfriend with the same expression he used when confirming a laboratory result. I don't want anyone else, he had said. I had believed him. Now he was saying the sentence that had begun the destruction of both my lives. Sienna wants me to help her during Saturday's SAT. For a moment, I could not breathe. The pain from my death seemed trapped inside my body. My stomach cramped with the memory of labor. My fingers shook with the memory of reaching for a phone that was no longer there. Adrian frowned. Evelyn, my name sounded strange in his younger voice. You heard me, right? He asked. Sienna Blake wants my help on the exam. I looked past him at the date printed on the library's digital notice board. May 2, 4 days before the SAT administration that would decide our final round of college applications and scholarship packages. The exact day I had been reborn to in my first life. I had reacted immediately. I had pulled Adrian into an empty classroom, listed every possible consequence, and spent 2 hours convincing him that invalidated scores and an academic misconduct record would follow him for years. He had eventually agreed not to help Sienna. He had scored A perfect 1600. I had scored 1580. We had both entered Harvard that fall. Sienna, who had refused to study and expected beauty to solve every problem, had failed to meet the admissions requirements for the universities she wanted. She spent the next few years blaming Adrian for abandoning her. Adrian spent the rest of his life blaming me. This time, I folded my hands behind my back so he would not see them tremble. What kind of help? I asked. His eyes shifted toward the library doors. Even at 18, he knew enough to lower his voice. She arranged for us to be assigned to the same testing center. She wants me to use a signal system for the multiple choice sections. I would finish early, then tap the answers in groups with my pencil. The method was absurd, reckless. Exactly the kind of plan that two arrogant teenagers would mistake for cleverness. And you're asking what I think. I'm telling you, the distinction mattered to him. Adrian never liked appearing uncertain. In my first life, I had not understood why he told me at all. I thought it proved that he trusted me. Years later, on the kitchen floor, I finally understood. He wanted me to forbid him. He wanted me to become the obstacle so he could protect his future without disappointing Sienna. If she complained, he could say his girlfriend had threatened to expose them. If he regretted refusing her, he could blame me. Adrian had already decided that whatever happened would be someone else's fault. I smiled. All right. His brows drew together. All right, if you want to help her, help her. Silence stretched between us. The corridor around us was crowded with students changing classes, but Adrian stared at me as if the building had emptied. You're not going to stop me, no. Cheating on the SAT can get both scores cancelled. I know, it could affect college admissions. I know that too. His jaw tightened. Then why are you acting like you don't care? Because I cared enough once to die for it, because I had spent 12 years loving a man who believed my advice had stolen the woman he truly wanted. Because the daughter I lost deserved a mother who would not make the same mistake twice. I met his eyes and said, "You're 18, Adrian. You know the rules, you know the risks. Make your own decision." He reached for my wrist. The moment his fingers touched my skin, my body remembered being trapped on the floor while he watched. I jerked away so sharply that his hand remained suspended in the air. Something flickered across his face, surprise first, then offense. "Evelyn, what is wrong with you?" "Nothing." I stepped around him. "I finally understand that your choices belong to you." The bell rang. Students moved around us in a rush of navy blazers and white shirts. Adrian remained still, his perfect composure cracked by the one thing he had never expected from me: indifference. I walked toward my next class without looking back. For the first time in 2 lives, I left Adrian Cole alone with the consequences of his own decision. I made it halfway down the corridor before Adrian caught up with me. His long stride usually looked effortless. This time, there was tension in every step. "Evelyn." I kept walking. He moved in front of me, forcing me to stop beside a row of college pennants: Harvard crimson, Yale blue, Princeton orange. In my first life, Adrian and I had stood beneath those flags and promised we would choose the same school. Now the sight of them felt like a door opening. "You're angry," he said. "I'm late for AP Literature. You always tell me what you think." That was my mistake. His gray eyes narrowed. "Is this because of Sienna?" The old Evelyn would have denied jealousy. She would have carefully explained that cheating was wrong, that Sienna was using him, and that a real friend would never ask him to risk his future. The new Evelyn had already learned how useless explanations were when someone wanted permission, not truth. "I don't care enough about Sienna to be angry," I said. The words landed harder than an accusation. Adrian had always been confident that I cared. He relied on it the way he relied on gravity. My concern was the invisible net beneath every reckless choice he considered making. He stared at me for several seconds, then his voice cooled. "You're being childish. Maybe. You know she's struggling. She has access to the same teachers, tutoring center, and study materials we do. She has test anxiety. She also skipped 12 review sessions to rehearse for the spring showcase." His mouth flattened. He knew I was right. Everyone knew Sienna Blake was Westbridge High's reigning queen. She was captain of the dance team, president of the social committee, and the face printed on almost every school promotional brochure, with honey blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a talent for looking vulnerable at exactly the right moment. She had built an empire out of attention. Teachers gave her extensions, students completed group projects for her, boys carried her bags and called it luck. Adrian had never openly joined her admirers, which only made her more interested in him. She only needs a competitive score, he said. Her extracurricular profile is strong, then she should earn one. He exhaled impatiently. I thought you said you weren't going to interfere. I'm not. You asked why she was struggling. I answered, for the first time. Adrian seemed to hear how ridiculous the conversation sounded. He wanted me to object, but only in a way that relieved him of responsibility, when I refused to play the role correctly. He grew irritated. I haven't agreed yet, he said. I almost laughed. There it was, the invitation. Tell me not to do it, Evelyn. Take the blame. Save me again. Instead, I checked the clock above the stairwell, then decide before Saturday. I walked around him this time. He did not follow in AP literature. I took my usual seat near the windows. My best friend, Maya Torres, leaned over before class began. What happened to Prince Charming? She whispered. I opened my notebook. His considering academic suicide for a pretty girl. Maya blinked. That sounds dramatic, even for you. It's accurate. She studied my face. Maya had known me since freshman year, but in my first life we drifted apart after graduation because Adrian disliked how directly she spoke about him. I had told myself marriage required compromise. In reality, I had slowly removed everyone who could see what I refused to admit. Maya reached under the desk and squeezed my hand. Did he hurt you? The simple question nearly undid me. Not yet, I thought. Not in this life, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrows rose. I mean, not today. I forced a smile. I'm fine. She did not believe me. But our teacher entered before she could ask more. For the next 50 minutes, we discussed betrayal in King Lear. The irony was almost insulting. At lunch, I did something I had not done in my first life. I sat with Maya instead of Adrian. Westbridge's cafeteria was built like a glass pavilion, with long windows overlooking the athletic field. Adrian's table occupied the center, as if even the furniture understood the hierarchy of the school. Varsity swimmers, student council officers, and honors students gathered around him. He sat at the end, eating with one hand and reviewing chemistry notes with the other. There was an empty chair beside him, my chair. When I passed without stopping, conversation at the table faltered. Maya pretended not to notice. You know everyone is staring. Right, let them. We chose a table near the windows. I unpacked the lunch my mother had made, turkey sandwich, strawberries, and a note reminding me not to study past midnight. In my first life, I had found notes like that embarrassing. Now I traced my mother's handwriting with my thumb and swallowed against the ache in my throat. She was alive. My father was alive. I was 18. I had a future that had not yet been narrowed into a hallway leading to Adrian. A shadow fell across the table. Sienna stood beside us in a white cardigan and pale blue skirt, looking like the carefully edited version of Innocence she posted online. Evelyn, she said warmly, can I borrow Adrian for a second? I looked behind her. Adrian had followed her across the cafeteria. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were fixed on me. You don't need my permission, I said. Sienna laughed softly. You two are always together. I don't want to cause a misunderstanding. There isn't one. Her smile sharpened at the edges. Sienna had expected resistance. She had approached me for the same reason Adrian had. Both of them wanted a triangle. Adrian wanted an excuse. Sienna wanted proof that she could take something from me. I refused to give either of them the satisfaction. She turned to Adrian. Did you talk to her? I did, and Adrian's gaze did not leave my face. She said it's my decision. Sienna's surprise lasted less than a second. Then she stepped closer to him. That's because she trusts you, she said, loud enough for me to hear. She knows you would never let anything bad happen. The praise was expertly chosen. Adrian's greatest weakness was not affection. It was the belief that he was smarter than consequences. Maya kicked me lightly under the table, silently asking whether we should leave. I stayed. Sienna lowered her voice, but not enough. I checked the seating chart. We'll be in the same room. I've practiced the signal pattern. It will be easy. Adrian glanced around. Not here. Sorry, she bit her lip. I'm just scared. My father said if I don't get into a top school, he'll send me to live with my aunt in Ohio and take away my car. I know that sounds shallow, but he doesn't understand how hard I've worked on dance and student leadership. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. Sienna had turned losing a luxury car into a human tragedy. Adrian, however, softened almost imperceptibly. What score do you need? He asked. 1450, maybe 1500 to be safe. She had scored 1180 on her last practice test. Adrian should have laughed. Instead, he said, the timing would have to be exact. Sienna's eyes brightened. I took a bite of my sandwich. In my first life, this was where I had interrupted. I had told Adrian he was risking everything. I had told Sienna to stop manipulating him. The cafeteria had gone silent. Sienna had cried. And Adrian had spent the evening accusing me of humiliating her. This time, I ate lunch while they designed their disaster beside me. Sienna touched Adrian's sleeve. If we both get into Harvard, I'll owe you forever. Adrian finally looked away from me. What does that mean? He asked. A blush appeared on Sienna's cheeks with suspicious precision. It means I won't pretend I don't know how you feel anymore. The cafeteria noise seemed to recede. Adrian's face remained composed. But I knew him well enough to see the pulse jump in his neck. My boyfriend, the boy who had told me 3 weeks earlier that he did not want anyone else, he did not step away from her. Maya whispered, Evelyn, do you want me to throw my drink at both of them? No. Are you sure? Yes. I folded my mother's note and placed it carefully in my pocket. They're exactly where they belong. Adrian heard me. His eyes met mine across the small distance between our tables for 1 second. Guilt moved across his face. Then Sienna slid her hand into his. And he let her. By the end of lunch, Adrian had agreed. Sienna celebrated as if he had proposed. She threw her arms around his neck in the middle of the cafeteria. Students gasped, then reached for their phones. Adrian stood rigid for half a second before placing one hand at her waist. The image spread through Westbridge before the final bell. Ice Prince melts for Sienna Blake, Westbridge's perfect couple. What about Evelyn Bennett? In my first life, the posts would have humiliated me. In this one, they felt like evidence. I saved screenshots, not because I planned revenge, but because I had finally learned the value of a clear record. Adrian had a talent for rewriting history. Someday he might claim Sienna forced him, that I misunderstood, or that we had already broken up. I would never again allow him to make me doubt what I had seen. After school, I went to the guidance office and asked to remove Adrian from my college planning authorization forms. Mrs. Patel, my counselor, adjusted her glasses. You listed each other as emergency contacts for campus visits. I'd like to list my mother instead. Of course. She clicked through the system. Do you also want me to separate your application conference? I had you scheduled together Thursday because your school lists overlap. Yes, please. She paused, then looked at me carefully. Is everything all right? I thought of the 18-year-old girl I had been the first time, building her future around a boy because everyone said they were inevitable. It will be, I said when I left the office. Adrian was waiting in the hallway. He leaned against the wall with his blazer folded over one arm. The late afternoon sun turned the edges of his dark hair bronze, giving him the polished, unreachable beauty that had made him the subject of anonymous love letters since 9th grade. You changed our counseling appointment, he said. News traveled quickly when the school secretary adored him. Yes, you also changed your emergency contact. Yes, his expression cooled, because Sienna hugged me, because we're no longer together. For the first time since I had known him, Adrian looked genuinely stunned. What? I'm breaking up with you. His gaze searched my face, as if he expected to find a joke. We've been dating for 3 weeks. Then this should be easy, Evelyn. His voice dropped, the tone that usually made people stop arguing. Sienna was emotional. The hug meant nothing. She offered to be your girlfriend if you help her cheat. She didn't say that exactly. She held your hand. I was trying to calm her down. You put your hand on her waist. His jaw tightened. Everyone was watching. Pushing her away would have embarrassed her. There it was again. Another person's feelings mattered more than my dignity, and somehow I was expected to call it kindness. I nodded. Then you made the correct choice for yourself. That isn't an answer. It is, you wanted to protect her from embarrassment. I want a boyfriend who protects our relationship. We want different things. He stepped closer. You don't end a relationship over one misunderstanding. I do. You're overreacting. No. I'm reacting once, clearly, so I don't have to spend years reacting to the same pattern. The words came from a life he did not remember. They made him go still. I handed him the silver key he had given me to his family's lake house. We had planned to study there after graduation. His fingers closed around it automatically. Keep it, I said. Take Sienna. A flash of anger broke through his famous composure. Stop using her to punish me. I almost admired the arrogance required to believe my freedom was a performance for him. I'm not punishing you, Adrian. I'm leaving. I walked toward the parking lot. He followed me down the steps. Our parents are having dinner together tonight. My mother can still be friends with yours. We've known each other since we were 6. That doesn't create a lifetime contract. You said you loved me. I stopped beside my car. The old pain rose unexpectedly. I had loved him. I had loved the boy who brought me hot chocolate during winter debate practice and waited outside urgent care when I broke my wrist. I had loved the college student who fell asleep beside me in the library and the man who cried at our wedding. Some of those moments might even have been real, but love did not erase the kitchen floor. I loved who I thought you were, I said. His face changed. For 1 second, he looked less like the Ice Prince and more like a boy who had stepped onto a surface he assumed was solid and heard it crack beneath him. Then a white convertible pulled to the curb. Sienna leaned across the passenger seat and called, Adrian, are we still meeting at the cafe? He looked from her to me. The choice could not have been staged more perfectly. In my first life, I would have waited. I would have watched his hesitation and searched it for proof that I mattered. This time, I opened my car door. Go, I said, she needs you. I drove away before he answered. At home, I found my mother, Laura, arranging flowers in the dining room. The table was set for 6. Adrian's mother, Margaret, had already sent over a bottle of expensive wine and a dessert from the bakery she used whenever she wanted to impress someone. Mom smiled when she saw me. Perfect timing. Can you put these in the guest room? Margaret called 3 times to confirm Adrian's scholarship interview is all we plan to discuss tonight. In my first life, Margaret had spent the entire dinner praising Adrian and comparing his grades to mine. My mother had laughed politely to keep the peace tonight. I took the flowers from her hands. Adrian and I broke up. The vase nearly slipped. Mom caught it against her chest. What happened? He agreed to help Sienna Blake cheat on the SAT. She promised to date him if he did. My mother's face went pale, then furious. He what? I told him it was his decision, Evelyn. Cheating on a standardized test can destroy his applications. I know. Does Margaret know? I don't think so. Mom set the vase down carefully. We need to tell her. Panic flashed through me so hard that I gripped the back of a chair. This was how it had begun before. Adults intervening, Adrian backing away, me becoming the reason. No, my mother stared. No, he is 18. He knows the rules. He told me because he wanted me to stop him, so he could blame me for disappointing Sienna. That's a very cynical interpretation. It's an accurate one. She studied me, and I wondered what she saw. Her daughter had left home that morning worried about exams and returned sounding decades older. Did something else happen? She asked softly. I wanted to tell her everything. The wedding, the baby, the floor, the hatred in Adrian's eyes. Instead, I crossed the room and hugged her. She stiffened in surprise, then wrapped both arms around me. I just need you to trust me, I whispered. Mom held me for a long moment. All right, she said, I trust you. We cancelled dinner. Margaret arrived anyway at 7 sharp. Her black SUV stopped in front of our house. She marched up the walkway in cream trousers and a silk blouse. Adrian beside her. Sienna was not with them. Margaret entered before my mother finished opening the door. What is this nonsense about cancelling because Evelyn is tired? She demanded. Adrian has an important week. We should be supporting him, not creating drama. Then she saw me in the living room. Her eyes narrowed. Did you two argue? Adrian said. Evelyn broke up with me. Margaret laughed as if he had made a joke when no one joined her. She looked at me. Over what? I met Adrian's gaze. He was watching closely, waiting to see whether I would expose him. I could have told her. One sentence would have ended the plan. Margaret had built her entire identity around her son's academic success. She would have locked him in his room until the test was over. In my first life, I had saved him. In this one, I said, we want different things. Margaret's mouth tightened. That's not a reason. It's the only one you need. Adrian's eyes flickered. He understood. I had kept his secret for some reason. That seemed to disturb him more than betrayal would have. Margaret turned to my mother. Laura, are you going to let her throw away a relationship with the best boy she will ever meet? My mother moved beside me. She made her decision. Teenagers make foolish decisions. Margaret glanced at Adrian with pride. Some children need guidance more than others. The insult was familiar. In every comparison, Adrian was brilliant and I was diligent. He was gifted and I was merely hardworking. If I achieved something, Margaret found a way to make it evidence of his superiority. Mom's voice cooled. Then guide your own child. Margaret flushed. Adrian stepped between them. We should go. At the door, he looked back at me. Are you sure? He asked. The question held more than our breakup. It was one final opportunity to stop him. I thought of his older face above me, empty of mercy. Yes, I said, I have never been more sure. He left. For days remained until the exam. For the first time, I slept without dreaming of the kitchen floor. The next morning, Westbridge High had already chosen sides. Sienna's friends treated me like a jealous ex-girlfriend who had been unable to keep Adrian. Several girls stopped talking when I passed. Someone taped a paper crown to my locker with the words "Former Ice Princess" written across it in red marker. Maya tore it down before I could. I can find out who did this, she said. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. I looked at her angry face and remembered how easily I had let this friendship disappear in my first life. Adrian had called Maya dramatic, intrusive, and disrespectful of our relationship. I had defended him because I thought loyalty meant choosing my husband in every conflict. Eventually Maya stopped calling. Now I folded the paper crown and slipped it into my backpack. What are you doing? She asked. Keeping a souvenir of public humiliation, of the day I stopped caring what people who don't know the truth think about me. Maya stared for a second, then grinned. I like this version of you. So did I. My first 3 classes passed quietly. Adrian did not approach me. Sienna did. Twice. The first time, she cornered me outside the science wing. I hope there are no hard feelings, she said. Her tone was sweet enough to rot teeth. I'm not holding anything, I replied. She tilted her head. Adrian said your breakup had nothing to do with me. Then why are you asking? Her smile faltered. Sienna needed me to acknowledge her victory. Without my pain, stealing Adrian was only acquiring a boy already willing to leave. She lowered her voice. He and I have always understood each other. He just felt responsible for you because your families are close. In my first life, that sentence would have kept me awake for weeks. In this one, it clarified everything. Then I'm glad he's finally free of the burden, I said. I stepped around her. She caught my arm. You really don't care. I looked down at her fingers. Until she released me. Sienna, I care very much about my SAT, my applications, and my future. You and Adrian are responsible for yours. The second time she approached, it was with an audience at the end of calculus. She stood near my desk while half the class packed slowly enough to listen. Evelyn, Adrian said you've been studying from the Baron Advanced packet. I closed my binder. I have. Could I borrow it tonight? The packet contained the final practice tests our private tutor had compiled. In my first life, I had shared everything with Adrian and through him. With Sienna, I'm using it. You've already completed most of it. I'm reviewing my mistakes. Her lower lip trembled slightly. I thought you wanted me to earn my score. I do. Then why won't you help me? The room became very still. It was a clever trap. If I refused, I was petty. If I agreed, she gained my work. I smiled. The packet is available at the tutoring center. They're open until 9. But I have rehearsal. Then you have a scheduling problem, not a resource problem. A boy near the door coughed to hide a laugh. Sienna's cheeks colored. You don't have to be cruel. No, I don't. I placed my binder in my bag. That's why I answered honestly instead of pretending your choices are someone else's responsibility. When I left the classroom, Adrian was standing in the hall. He had heard everything. You enjoyed that, he said. No, I'm tired of being asked to solve problems other people created. Sienna is under pressure. So am I. You've always tested. Well, because I study. His eyes hardened. You've changed. Yes, what happened? You killed me, the answer pressed against my teeth. Instead, I said, I realized being useful to someone isn't the same as being loved by them. He went silent. I walked away before he could decide whether to understand that afternoon. I changed my routines. I stopped studying at the Cole house. I returned the sweatshirt Adrian had left in my car. I removed our shared calendar from my phone and deleted the folder labeled Harvard, US. I moved my desk away from the bedroom window that faced his house across the street. Each action was small, but together they felt surgical. I was cutting threads that had once seemed too tangled to separate. My mother watched from the doorway as I boxed the framed photograph of Adrian and me at junior prom. You don't have to erase your whole childhood, she said. I'm not erasing it, I'm putting it where it belongs. She sat on the edge of my bed. Margaret called again. I waited. She said Adrian is distracted and that your behavior before an important exam is unfair. A laugh escaped me. My breakup is more distracting than helping someone cheat. Mom's eyes sharpened. I still think an adult should intervene. I understand. What happens if he gets caught? His score will be cancelled. The testing board may ban him from future administrations. Westbridge could suspend him or remove him as valedictorian. Colleges could withdraw offers, and you're comfortable letting that happen? No, I sat beside her. But I'm more afraid of becoming responsible for every choice he makes. If I save him now, he will not learn that he chose this. He will only learn that I will always stand between him and consequences. My mother looked toward the window, where the lights in Adrian's room glowed across the street. You sound like someone who has already lived through the result, she murmured. My throat tightened. Maybe I have lived through enough of the pattern. She took my hand. Then I won't call Margaret, thank you, but I'm going to say something you may not like. Go ahead. You are not responsible for saving him. You are also not responsible for punishing him. Focus on yourself. The distinction settled inside me. I had told myself I was simply respecting his choice, but part of me had been waiting for the moment he fell. I wanted him to feel the helplessness he had given me. I wanted Sienna to lose the future he had blamed me for protecting. My mother was right. If I built my second life around watching Adrian fail, he would still be at its center that night. I created a new study schedule, not to beat him, not to prove Margaret wrong, not to earn the future Adrian had once shared with me. I studied because the life ahead of me belonged to me. At 10:30, a message appeared on my phone. Adrian, are you really going to let me do this? I read it twice, then I typed, I am not letting you do anything. You are making a choice. 3 dots. Appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Adrian, if something goes wrong, don't pretend you didn't know. There it was. The foundation of his future accusation, laid before the act itself. I took a screenshot, then I replied, I told you the risks. I will not participate, hide evidence, or lie for you. Do not involve me. His response came a minute later. Adrian, you're unbelievable. I blocked his number until after the exam. Across the street, his bedroom light stayed on past midnight. Mine went dark at 11. Friday morning began with a mandatory pre-exam assembly. All seniors taking the SAT were called to the auditorium, where Principal Reynolds stood beneath a screen displaying the words Test Security is everyone's responsibility. I almost admired the timing. The testing coordinator reviewed prohibited devices, identification requirements, break procedures, and score cancellation policies. She explained that every room had multiple cameras and that suspicious answer patterns could trigger a review even after scores were released. Do not communicate with another test taker in any form, she said. Do not share questions after the test. Do not use coded gestures, tapping, reflective surfaces, or wearable technology. A moment of poor judgment can affect your college future. 3 rows ahead of me, Adrian sat perfectly still. Sienna sat across the aisle. Her blonde hair was tied in a blue ribbon, and her posture suggested innocence at a distance. When the coordinator mentioned coded tapping, Sienna's fingers stopped moving on her notebook. Adrian glanced toward her. It lasted less than a second. Mrs. Patel, standing near the stage, noticed. So did I. During the question period, a student asked whether someone could report suspected cheating anonymously. The coordinator said yes. Half the auditorium turned to look at me. Whispers moved through the rows. Evelyn knows, Evelyn is jealous, Evelyn will report them. Sienna turned slowly in her seat and gave me a wounded look designed for witnesses. I did not react. After the assembly, she approached me in the lobby with Adrian beside her. Can we talk? She asked. No, this affects all three of us. It affects the people taking part. Adrian's voice was flat. Did you report anything? No. Would you tell me if you had? Yes. He searched my face. Sienna crossed her arms. Everyone thinks you're going to sabotage us. I don't have to sabotage you. Her eyes flashed. What is that supposed to mean? The testing coordinator explained it clearly. Adrian stepped closer. You said you wouldn't interfere. I haven't. Then promise you won't report us after the exam. I looked at him for a long moment. He did not ask me to promise because he trusted me. He asked because he already knew they were likely to be caught and wanted another person bound to the secret. I won't make promises about misconduct I'm not involved in, I said, and if an investigator asks me a direct question, I won't lie. Sienna gave a sharp laugh. So you are planning to ruin us? No. I am planning to answer honestly if asked. You're doing this because Adrian chose me. A group of students slowed nearby. I could have defended myself. I could have exposed the messages, the plan, and the bargain she had offered him. Instead, I said, if honesty ruins you, I'm not the problem. I walked away. By lunch, a new rumor had spread. I had threatened to report Adrian unless he came back to me. Maya showed me the anonymous post on Westbridge Confessions. Say the word, she said, and I will release the cafeteria video. Half the school recorded her climbing him like a tree. No, why are you protecting them? I'm protecting myself from being pulled into their story. They already pulled you in. Only if I stay. Maya looked unconvinced, but she put her phone away. After school, I went to the public library. My father picked me up at 9, brought takeout noodles, and quizzed me on vocabulary during the drive home. Dad had always been quieter than Mom, but his support was steady. In my first life, Adrian had gradually convinced me that my parents worried too much and expected access to every decision. We moved 3 states away after graduation. Visits became holidays, then occasional weekends. I had not understood isolation because it arrived disguised as independence at a stoplight. Dad glanced at me. Your mother told me what's happening. I closed the flashcards. Are you going to tell me to report them? No. Are you going to tell me I'm wrong not to? No. What are you going to say? That you should sit as far away from them as possible? Despite everything. I laughed. He smiled. Seriously, cheaters panic. Panicked people drag others down. I'm assigned to a different room. Good. He turned into our neighborhood. And Evelyn, yes. You don't owe anyone silence if they try to blame you. The word stayed with me at home. I checked the blocked message folder. Adrian had sent 6 texts. The first 3 were angry. The 4th asked whether I had eaten dinner. The 5th said he could still cancel the plan if I admitted I cared. The 6th arrived at 8:47 p.m. Adrian, Sienna says you told Maya. If this gets out, I'll know it came from you. I felt the old instinct rise. Explain, reassure, prove. I let it pass. Then I opened my laptop and reviewed grammar rules across town. Adrian and Sienna met in the back room of a coffee shop owned by one of Sienna's cousins. I knew the location because in my first life Adrian eventually told me every detail while defending himself. Their original tapping system had been simple. 1 tap for A, 2 for B, 3 for C, 4 for D. During each section, Adrian would finish early and transmit answers question by question. After the security assembly, they changed the plan. Sienna wore a thin silver bracelet with 4 tiny charms. Adrian had bought an identical one. They agreed that he would rotate the bracelet so a different charm faced upward to indicate each answer. During breaks, he would confirm ranges using phrases about water, pencils, and time. They believed silent communication could not be proven. They were wrong for reasons neither understood. The testing agency used statistical analysis to compare response patterns. Sienna's practice scores were on file through Westbridge. A sudden jump of more than 300 points would invite scrutiny. Identical wrong answers in the same sequence would matter. Camera footage would matter. Seating charts, eye movements, and the matching bracelets would matter. Most of all, arrogance would matter. Adrian had spent his entire life being the smartest person in the room. He could not imagine that a system might be smarter than he was. At 11:15, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered because I thought it might be a family emergency. Adrian's voice came through. "You blocked me." "Yes. Why?" "Because I'm studying." "So am I. Then we should both get back to it." "Wait." I said nothing. His breathing sounded uneven. Adrian was rarely nervous, and hearing it made the past overlap with the present. In my first life, he had called me the night before the exam from this same borrowed number. He had said Sienna was pressuring him. I had driven to the cafe, confronted them, and ended the plan. Now he was offering me the same role. "If I don't help her," he said, "she'll think I used her feelings to control her. She asked you to cheat before she offered to date you. That isn't the point." "What is the point?" He was silent. "The point," I said, "is that you want her, but you don't want the risk. You want me to make the decision so you can resent me instead of yourself. That's not fair." "It's completely fair. You can say no, you can say yes, you can walk away. Every option is yours." His voice turned cold. "You really have changed. I know. I don't think I like who you are now." The sentence should have hurt. Instead, I felt something unclench. "That makes two of us," I said. I ended the call and unplugged my phone. For the rest of the night, no one interrupted me. Saturday arrived bright and cold. I woke before my alarm, expecting panic. Instead, I felt calm. In my first life, test morning had been consumed by Adrian. I had checked his admission ticket, packed extra pencils for him, and spent breakfast reassuring him that refusing Sienna had been the right decision. This time, I ate oatmeal with my parents and reviewed nothing. Mom placed a banana beside my water bottle. Dad checked the route to the testing center twice. "You have your identification?" he asked. "Yes." "Calculator?" "Yes." "Backup calculator?" "Dad, I'm being supportive. You're conducting an equipment audit." "Same thing." Mom kissed my forehead. "Whatever the score, we are proud of you." The words nearly made me cry. At the testing center, students gathered outside Franklin Preparatory Academy in jackets and school hoodies. Parents idled at the curb. Volunteers checked admission tickets beneath a banner that read, "Your future starts today." Adrian stood near the entrance. He wore a black coat over a gray sweater, one hand in his pocket, even tense. He looked composed enough for a college brochure. Sienna stood beside him in a cream jacket, laughing too brightly. Matching silver bracelets circled their wrists. When Adrian saw me, his expression shifted. He took one step forward. Sienna caught his sleeve. I walked past them. "Evelyn," he called. The line slowed. I turned. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His face looked younger than I remembered and older than it should have. He knew he was about to cross a line. He wanted one final chance to believe someone else had pushed him. "Good luck," he said. "You too." Sienna watched me with narrowed eyes. Inside, staff separated us by room assignment. I was sent to room 214 on the east side of the building. Adrian and Sienna were assigned to room 108. The distance felt like mercy. Our proctor, Mr. Lang, read every instruction slowly. We placed phones in sealed bags beneath our chairs. He checked calculators and wrists. I had no watch, no jewelry, and nothing in my pockets except my identification. When he told us to begin, the room filled with the soft turn of pages. The first reading passage was about migration patterns in monarch butterflies. I knew the structure from my review. The questions felt familiar, not because I remembered exact answers from my previous life, but because years of college and professional work had changed how I processed information. I moved steadily. Halfway through the second module, pain tightened unexpectedly across my abdomen. My pencil stopped. For one terrifying second, I was back on the kitchen floor. The test booklet blurred. I heard rain that was not falling and Adrian's voice saying, "You deserve it." I pressed both feet into the floor. Room 214. I told myself, Franklin Preparatory Academy, May 6. I was 18. I was safe. My parents were waiting at a diner 3 blocks away. No one had taken my phone. No one controlled whether I received help. The pain faded. I breathed once, turned the page, and continued. During the break, Maya found me near the water fountain. She was assigned to a room upstairs. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Good. You look pale." "Just tired." She handed me a granola bar. "I saw Sienna in the restroom." I did not ask. Maya lowered her voice. She was smiling at herself in the mirror like she had already been admitted. That's her business. You're really not going to report them? No. What if they get away with it? The question had haunted me all week. If Adrian succeeded, he and Sienna might go to Harvard together. They might become the couple he had imagined. I might watch them receive everything he once accused me of stealing, but even that future would be theirs, not mine. I'll still have my score, I said. I'll still have my applications. Their choices don't change what I earn. Maya looked at me as if memorizing the sentence. Remind me of that the next time I'm obsessing over someone else. I will, a bell signaled. The end of break. The second half of the exam passed without incident in my room. In room 108, the plan began to unravel before the math section ended. I learned the details weeks later from the testing board's report and from students who had been in the room. Adrian finished the first math module with 12 minutes remaining. He placed his calculator down, rolled his shoulders, and turned the silver bracelet one charm at a time. Sienna watched from 2 rows away. At first, the movements looked ordinary, then she began changing answers in rapid sequence. A proctor noticed her eyes lifting from the booklet every few seconds. He moved to the back of the room. Sienna immediately stopped looking up. Adrian waited, then tapped his pencil against the desk during the next section. The second proctor wrote something on a clipboard. Neither student was confronted. That made them overconfident. During the next break, Sienna approached the water fountain while Adrian stood nearby. My pencil keeps breaking, she said. Their code meant she had missed a range. Adrian replied, you have plenty of time. That meant questions 31 through 40. A hallway camera recorded the exchange. Back in the room, Adrian rotated the bracelet again. This time, one of the charms caught the overhead light. The proctor saw Sienna track it with her eyes. He did not stop the test. Testing protocols required staff to document suspected misconduct without creating a disruption unless a prohibited device was involved. The proctor changed his position, watched the pattern, and recorded timestamps. Adrian mistook silence for success. By the final section, Sienna was answering with confidence she had never shown on a practice exam. When time was called, she closed her booklet and smiled at him outside. The courtyard filled with relieved students. Maya and I found my parents near the curb. Mom hugged both of us. Dad handed me a hot chocolate. Did the equipment pass inspection? I asked. Barely, he said. The student performed adequately. We were laughing when Adrian and Sienna emerged. They looked radiant. Sienna linked her arm through his and raised their joined hands for a photograph one of her friends took. The matching bracelets flashed in the sun. Perfect score incoming. Someone shouted. Adrian's smile was small but real. Then he looked at me. Triumph entered his eyes, followed by something almost like challenge. He wanted me to regret leaving. He wanted me to understand that Sienna had chosen him and that he had been clever enough to secure their shared future. I lifted my cup in a silent toast. Congratulations. I thought you finally got exactly what you wanted. As we drove away, my father checked the rearview mirror. Are you all right? I watched Adrian and Sienna disappear behind us. Yes, I said. And for the first time, it was true. For the first 48 hours after the SAT, Sienna behaved like a celebrity waiting for an award announcement. She posted photographs from the testing center, including one where she and Adrian stood beneath the Your Future Starts Today banner. Her caption read, "Hard work, faith, and the right person beside you. Harvard, here we come." The post gathered thousands of likes. Adrian did not share it, but he allowed himself to be tagged. That was his style. Sienna displayed the relationship. He preserved the illusion that he was above public attention. At school on Monday, they arrived together. Students parted for them in the main corridor. Sienna wore Adrian's swim team jacket over her uniform. Adrian carried her books. The performance was so complete that even people who disliked them watched. Maya leaned against my locker. "How are you not furious? I used to think I was losing something. And now I know what it costs to keep him." She gave me a strange look. "Sometimes you say things like a divorced 40-year-old. I smiled. Maybe I read too much. Adrian stopped beside us. Sienna remained a few feet away with her friends. But she watched. "Can we talk?" he asked. Maya answered before I could. "No." His eyes cooled. I asked Evelyn. "And Evelyn is busy." I touched Maya's arm. "It's fine. She walked away reluctantly, pointing 2 fingers at her own eyes and then at Adrian in a silent warning. He ignored her. "You looked happy on Saturday," he said. "I was relieved the test was over, that's all. What else should it be?" His gaze moved over my face. "You didn't ask how it went for me. I assumed you would tell anyone who wanted to know." A faint line appeared between his brows. "You used to care about my scores. I used to care about many things that weren't mine to control." He glanced toward Sienna. "I think we did well." The plural was deliberate. "I hope you received the result you earned," I said. His expression sharpened. "What does that mean?" "Exactly what I said." He lowered his voice. "No one saw anything." I looked at the security camera above the corridor intersection. Adrian followed my gaze and went still. Then he gave a dismissive laugh. "The proctors didn't say a word. Then you have nothing to worry about." I closed my locker. He blocked it with one hand. "Did you report us after the exam?" "No." "Did Maya?" "I don't know." "That means she did. It means I don't supervise Maya's decisions." "You told her?" "I told my best friend why my boyfriend was holding hands with someone else." His face changed at the word boyfriend, as if he had momentarily forgotten he had been one. "We were already having problems," he said. "No, we were together until you accepted another girl's romantic offer in front of me. You broke up with me before anything happened. History is moving quickly in your version." Sienna called his name. Adrian stepped back. "I don't want you spreading rumors." "Then behave in a way that requires no rumors." I left him standing beside my locker. The next 3 weeks were the quietest of my senior year. Without Adrian occupying every spare hour, I rediscovered my own life, Maya, and I studied at a bookstore cafe. I joined my father on morning runs. I helped Mom choose paint for the kitchen and listened to her stories instead of checking whether Adrian had texted. I also met with Mrs. Patel to revise my university list. In my first life, every school had been chosen through one question: where will Adrian go this time? I considered programs, research opportunities, financial aid, campus culture, and distance from home. Harvard remained my first choice because its computer science and applied mathematics programs aligned with the work I wanted to pursue, but I added Stanford, MIT, Princeton, and Carnegie Mellon without caring whether Adrian approved. Mrs. Patel reviewed my essay draft. It was about voice recognition software and how technology could make emergency systems more accessible. In my first life, after Adrian took my phone, I had been unable to call for help. I could not write that truth, but I could transform it into purpose. "This is stronger than your earlier essay," she said. "Because it's mine." She looked up. "Was the other one not yours? It was written to fit someone else's future." Mrs. Patel nodded slowly. "Admissions officers can feel the difference." The same week, Westbridge announced that local media would film its annual Senior Excellence Night. Margaret Cole volunteered to organize the reception. No one was surprised. She ordered a 12-foot banner reading Westbridge's Road to the Ivy League and insisted on a display featuring Adrian's academic medals. She also persuaded the school's communications director to prepare a student couple feature about Adrian and Sienna, the valedictorian and the school's most accomplished student leader. The draft announcement called them. It did not mention that SAT scores had not been released. It did not mention me at all. Margaret visited our house to make sure that changed. She arrived with 2 printed invitations and a smile that was almost generous. "Laura, you and Daniel should come," she said. "Evelyn too, of course. It may inspire her." Mom examined the invitation. "Evelyn is already attending. She's receiving the mathematics department award." Margaret waved one hand. "Yes, yes. I meant the college portion. Adrian and Sienna are likely to receive exceptional results. The station wants family reactions." I stood in the doorway to the kitchen, listening. Margaret saw me. "There she is. You should wear something nice. Cameras can be unforgiving." "I'll keep that in mind." Her eyes moved over my sweatshirt and jeans. "Sienna has such natural presence. She knows how to present herself. Academic ability is useful, but girls need social intelligence too." Mom set down the invitation. "Evelyn has both, of course." Margaret's smile tightened. "I only meant that Sienna balances Adrian beautifully. He can be too serious. She brings him into the world." I wondered whether Margaret knew about the cheating. Adrian might have told her they were dating. but he would never risk her stopping the plan. You must be relieved, I said. About what? That Adrian found someone who matches him. She brightened, mistaking sincerity for surrender. Exactly. They are a striking pair, and when they attend Harvard together, people will remember them. I'm sure they will. Mom waited until Margaret left before closing the door with more force than necessary. She has always been competitive, she said, but lately she is unbearable. She's afraid. Of what? That if Adrian isn't exceptional, she won't know who she is. Mom looked toward the street. That is a terrible burden to put on a child. It was, but Adrian had spent years accepting the benefits of that burden: praise, access, forgiveness, and the assumption that every room belonged to him. Now he was about to discover the price. 2 days before Senior Excellence Night, SAT scores were released online at 6:00 a.m. I logged into my account. The number appeared in the center of the screen, 1600, for several seconds. I simply stared. Perfect scores were rare, but the number meant more than academic success. It was proof that the future had changed. In my first life, I had scored 1580 after spending the week protecting Adrian. This time, the energy I once poured into saving him had returned to me. My mother screamed when I told her. Dad opened a bottle of sparkling cider at breakfast. Maya called from her car and shouted so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. At school, Mrs. Patel hugged me. You are the only perfect scorer in the district, she said. The state scholarship committee has already requested your file. What about Adrian? I asked before I could stop myself. Her expression shifted. His score is delayed, and Sienna's also delayed. Delayed scores did not automatically mean misconduct. Sometimes records required verification, but both of them, same testing room, same day the investigation had begun. Senior Excellence Night transformed the Westbridge Auditorium into a theater of ambition. College pennants lined the walls, gold lights framed the stage. A local television crew positioned cameras near the front row, while parents filled the seats in cocktail dresses and dark suits. Margaret stood in the lobby wearing emerald silk and directing volunteers as if she were producing an awards show. When she saw my family, she swept toward us. Laura, you came. Her gaze settled on my navy dress. Evelyn, that color is very sensible. It was not a compliment, Mom smiled. She looks beautiful. Margaret lowered her voice. Adrian's score is under routine verification. The system sometimes flags very high scores. We expect the perfect result to be confirmed tonight. She had turned a delayed score into proof of brilliance. That must be reassuring, I said. Her smile widened. Sienna's score is delayed too. They probably triggered some kind of top performer review because their answers were so similar. I looked at her. Margaret did not understand what she had just said. Behind her, Adrian had gone pale. He wore a black suit and stood beside Sienna near the photo backdrop. Sienna looked flawless in a white dress, but she kept checking her phone. When her eyes met mine, anxiety sharpened her face. Adrian crossed the lobby. My mother doesn't know, he said quietly. I assumed, if anyone asks. The testing company is verifying my identification. Then that's what you should tell them. His eyes flashed. You know that isn't true. I know nothing officially. You're enjoying this, I considered. The accusation, part of me was, the girl who died on the kitchen floor wanted him afraid, but the larger feeling was distance. He seemed like someone on the other side of glass, visible, familiar, and no longer able to touch me. I'm waiting for my award, I said. His gaze dropped to the program in my hand. My name appeared beneath mathematics excellence, debate leadership, and state scholar recognition. He looked up sharply. State scholar. My score was released. What did you get? Before I answered, Principal Reynolds tapped the microphone. Please take your seats. We will begin in 5 minutes. Maya appeared in a red dress and linked her arm through mine. Come on, perfect scorer, she said loudly. The words reached everyone nearby. Margaret stopped speaking. Sienna's phone slipped in her hand. Adrian's face emptied of expression. What did she say? Margaret asked. Maya smiled sweetly. Evelyn got a 1600. The lobby seemed to inhale. My mother's hand found mine. Margaret laughed once. That can't be right. Mrs. Patel, passing with a stack of certificates, heard her. It is correct, she said. Evelyn earned the district's only perfect SAT score and the highest composite academic index in Westbridge history. Margaret looked at Adrian. He said nothing. The auditorium doors opened, we took our seats, the ceremony began with music, speeches, and department awards. Students crossed the stage while parents applauded, cameras moved quietly along the aisles when my name was called for mathematics. My father cheered before anyone else. When I received the debate award, Maya whistled. When Principal Reynolds announced the state scholar recognition, the screen behind the stage displayed my SAT score and a list of universities that had requested updated application materials. Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Stanford. The applause became a roar. I stood beneath the lights holding a glass plaque and looked into the audience. My parents were on their feet. Adrian sat perfectly still. Sienna stared at the screen as if it had betrayed her. Margaret's face was rigid. In my first life, this moment had belonged to Adrian. I had stood beside him, proud of a success I helped protect. Margaret had told reporters that I was fortunate to follow him to Harvard. This time, I stood alone. And I did not feel lonely. After the academic awards, the communications director introduced the filmed feature. Westbridge has always celebrated students who combine excellence with leadership, she said. Tonight, we hope to recognize two seniors whose partnership has inspired significant attention. Valedictorian candidate Adrian Cole and student leadership president Sienna Blake. A photograph of them appeared on the screen. The image taken outside the testing center. Matching bracelets visible beneath their joined hands. Sienna's breathing changed. Adrian looked toward the exit. Before either could move, Principal Reynolds approached the microphone. However, he said, "We have received a time-sensitive update from the Educational Testing Integrity Office." The room quieted. Two people in dark business attire stood near the side door with the district superintendent. One carried a slim black folder. Margaret rose halfway from her seat. "What update?" Principal Reynolds's expression was grave. "Mrs. Cole, please sit down." She did not. The man with the folder stepped forward. "Adrian Cole and Sienna Blake, we need to speak with you and your guardians regarding an active test security investigation." Gasps moved through the auditorium. Sienna turned to Adrian. "You said they didn't know." Her whisper carried through the microphone nearest the stage. The television camera swung toward them. Adrian stood slowly. "This is a mistake." The investigator opened the folder. "Your SAT scores have been placed on administrative hold pending final cancellation. We have documented coordinated response behavior, prohibited communication, and matching anomalous answer patterns." Margaret pushed into the aisle. "My son would never cheat," a student behind her muttered. "Then why is his girlfriend panicking?" Sienna's composure shattered. "I didn't do anything," she said. "Adrian was the one moving the bracelet." Every camera captured the sentence. Adrian turned toward her, disbelief cutting through his cold expression. "You asked me to. I asked for help studying. You designed the signals. You bought the bracelets." The auditorium erupted. Principal Reynolds repeatedly asked for order, but the story was already escaping control. Students recorded, parents whispered, the local news crew continued filming. Margaret looked from her son to Sienna. "What bracelets?" she demanded. No one answered. The investigator held up a printed photograph from the hallway camera. Adrian and Sienna stood near the water fountain, matching bracelets visible. Another page showed still frames from the testing room with timestamps. "We also have proctor statements and statistical analysis showing identical answer changes during the documented signaling intervals," he said. "Both students will be given a formal response opportunity. For now, they must leave the event." Margaret's face turned white. Then she saw me. The confusion in her expression hardened into accusation. "You," she said. My father stood before she could reach our row. Margaret pointed at me over his shoulder. "You reported them because Adrian broke up with you." The room quieted again. Eager for the next scene, I rose. "I did not report them, liar." The investigator intervened. The review was initiated by testing room proctors and automated security analysis. No student report triggered it. Margaret ignored him. "You knew." "Yes," I said. Adrian looked at me. The single word passed through the room like electricity. Margaret's voice rose. "And you did nothing?" The question was so absurd that even several parents looked at her in disbelief. I met Adrian's eyes, I told him the consequences, I told him I would not participate, conceal evidence, or lie. He told me it was his decision. His face tightened. I continued, he was right about one thing. It was his decision. The investigator asked Adrian and Sienna to follow him. Sienna began crying, not the polished tears she used in classrooms, but desperate, ugly sobs. Adrian did not comfort her. He stared at the floor as he walked toward the exit. At the door, he looked back once. The expression on his face was not anger yet, it was recognition. He had finally reached the place I refused to save him from. By morning, the video had gone viral. The local station aired a carefully edited segment, but students posted the full confrontation online. Sienna's words, "Adrian was the one moving the bracelet," became a trending audio clip. Screenshots of their testing center photograph circulated beside headlines about Westbridge's cheating scandal. The school disabled comments on its social accounts. Margaret called our house 14 times. My parents did not answer. At 10, a district attorney contacted us, not because criminal charges were expected, but because the school wanted written statements from anyone who had prior knowledge. I told the truth through a formal interview with my parents present. I described Adrian's original conversation. I provided the messages where I warned him of the risks and refused involvement. I explained that I had not known the final signaling method, only that Sienna wanted his help. The investigator read Adrian's text, "If something goes wrong, don't pretend you didn't." "No," he raised one eyebrow. "That message appears to shift responsibility before the misconduct occurred." He said, "Yes, why didn't you report the plan?" I had prepared for the question. Because I was his ex-girlfriend, rumors were already circulating that I was jealous. And I did not have evidence beyond his statement. I told him I would not lie if asked. I separated myself from the situation. The investigator nodded. "You were not obligated to conduct the school's security work." Relief moved through my father's shoulders. The official decision arrived 9 days later. Adrian Cole and Sienna Blake had violated testing rules through coordinated signaling. Both scores were cancelled, both were banned from retesting for 2 years. Westbridge removed Adrian as valedictorian and suspended both students for the remainder of the term, allowing them to complete graduation requirements remotely. The consequences spread beyond the testing agency. Harvard, Yale, and Princeton withdrew Adrian's pending applications for material integrity concerns. 2 scholarship foundations rescinded finalist status. Sienna's early admission to a private university was cancelled after the school received the disciplinary report. Their futures did not disappear entirely. They could attend community college, rebuild records, and apply elsewhere later, but the flawless paths they believed they owned were gone. Margaret came to our house the evening the decision became public. This time, she did not wear silk or bring dessert. Her hair was uncombed, her eyes were swollen. She pounded on the door until Dad opened it. "I need to speak to Evelyn." "No," he said, "she owes me an explanation." "She owes you nothing." I heard them from the stairs and came down anyway. Margaret saw me and pushed past my father. "You ruined him." Mom stepped between us. "Leave our house." Margaret's voice broke. "He was going to Harvard. He was going to change our family. Do you understand what she has taken from us?" I looked at the woman who had spent years measuring my worth against her son's. "I did not take his score," I said. "He gave it away. You could have stopped him." "Yes." The room went still. Mom turned toward me, but I kept my eyes on Margaret. "I stopped him once," I said softly. "He learned nothing except that someone else would protect him. This time, he knew the rules. He attended the security assembly. He planned the signals. He carried them out. At what point does Adrian become responsible?" "For Adrian," Margaret's mouth opened and closed. "He is a child," she whispered. "He is 18. He was manipulated by that girl. Sienna manipulated him. He also used her feelings to justify something he wanted to do. Both can be true." Margaret shook her head violently. "You are jealous. You always have been. You couldn't stand that he chose someone prettier." My mother took one step forward. I touched her arm. "In my first life, insults about my looks had cut deeply because I thought Adrian's choice confirmed them. Now I understood that beauty had never been the central issue. Sienna offered admiration without accountability. Adrian preferred a mirror to a partner. I hope blaming me helps you sleep, I said, but it will not help your son rebuild. Dad opened the door. Margaret left cursing my name. Across the street, a curtain moved in Adrian's bedroom window. He had watched the entire confrontation. The next afternoon, he appeared outside the bookstore cafe where Maya and I were studying. He looked different without his Westbridge blazer. The black hoodie and faded jeans made him seem less like the Ice Prince and more like an exhausted teenager. Maya stood immediately. I only want 5 minutes, he said. You have one, she replied. I closed my laptop. It's okay. She moved to the next table but remained close enough to intervene. Adrian sat across from me for several seconds. He said nothing then. You saved the messages. Yes, you gave them to the investigator. He asked for relevant communication. You said you wouldn't report me. I didn't. After the investigation began, I told the truth. His hands tightened on the edge of the table. You could have deleted them. Why would I? To protect me. The answer came with such certainty that I almost felt pity. You were asking me to protect you from something you chose after I warned you. You wanted this to happen. I wanted you to own your decision. That's the same thing. No, it only feels the same. Because you believed ownership would never include consequences. His face went cold. Sienna says you set us up. Sienna also said you moved the bracelet before anyone accused her publicly. Pain flashed across his eyes. He had risked everything because she promised love. At the first threat, she had handed him to the crowd. You're happy she betrayed me, he said. I'm not surprised. You always hated her. I never trusted her. And you were waiting to be right. I leaned back. Adrian, even now, you are discussing my reaction instead of your choice. He looked away through the window. Pedestrians moved beneath spring trees. The world continued with an indifference that would have terrified my younger self. Scandal felt enormous when it was yours. To everyone else, it was one story among many. What am I supposed to do now? He asked. It was the first honest question he had asked me. Start by accepting that no one else can answer that for you. His eyes returned to mine for a moment. He looked angry enough to say something cruel instead. He whispered, "You really don't love me anymore." The truth was more complicated. Somewhere inside me, there was still a girl who loved the boy he had once been. But love without trust was memory, not a future. No, I said, I don't. He flinched. Then he stood and left without another word. Maya returned to the table. How do you feel? I watched him disappear into the crowd. Free, I said. Graduation took place 3 weeks later beneath a white tent on Westbridge's football field. Adrian and Sienna were permitted to attend, but neither walked with honors. Their names appeared near the end of the program without titles, awards, or university destinations. Mine appeared beneath valedictorian. After Adrian's removal, the school recalculated its academic ranking. My grades, course rigor, and perfect SAT placed me first. When Principal Reynolds offered me the speech, I nearly refused. In my first life, public recognition had always felt dangerous. Margaret found a way to diminish it. Adrian found a way to make it about our shared future. I had learned to shrink my pride before someone else could call it arrogance. Then I remembered my mother's advice. Focus on yourself, so I accepted. I spoke about choices, not Adrian's, not Sienna's, mine. I told my classmates that intelligence could open doors, but integrity determined which version of us walked through them. I said that a future was not a prize awarded once at 18, it was something we built through repeated decisions, especially when no one seemed to be watching. I did not mention cheating. I did not need to. At the edge of the graduating class, Adrian stared at me throughout the entire speech. Sienna looked at her phone. After the ceremony, families crowded the field for photographs. Harvard's admissions packet felt heavy in my mother's handbag. My enrollment had been confirmed with a generous need-based package and a state merit scholarship. Dad took so many pictures that Maya threatened to confiscate his camera for half an hour. I forgot Adrian existed. Then Margaret approached. She wore oversized sunglasses and held herself with brittle dignity. Adrian followed several steps behind. Sienna was nowhere near them. Congratulations, Margaret said to my mother. The word sounded painful. Mom answered politely, thank you. Margaret looked at me. Harvard? Yes, Adrian could still join you later. Once the ban ends, his natural ability will carry him. Adrian's face tightened. She continued, Perhaps the two of you could stay in touch. You have always understood him better than anyone. I almost admired her speed. 3 weeks earlier, Sienna had been Adrian's perfect match and I had been the plain, hard-working neighbor. Now I was a bridge back to the future she wanted. No, I said. Margaret lowered her sunglasses. No, we won't be staying in touch. Don't be dramatic. Young relationships are complicated. Cheating was not a relationship complication. She glanced around to see who might hear. Must you keep using that word? It is the accurate word. Adrian finally spoke. Mom, stop. She turned on him. I am trying to help you. That's the problem. The words surprised all of us. Margaret's face crumpled. After everything I have done, he looked exhausted. You told everyone I would be the top scorer before results existed. You built a stage I couldn't escape. When my score was delayed, you invited cameras anyway. You were supposed to succeed. I was supposed to be your proof that you were better than everyone else. For one moment, I saw the boy beneath the arrogance. Margaret had praised Adrian so constantly that failure became unthinkable. He had learned to conceal uncertainty, shift blame, and accept rescue because love in his house was inseparable from achievement. Understanding did not excuse him, but it made the pattern clear. Margaret slapped him. The sound cut through the celebration around us. Adrian did not move. A red mark appeared on his cheek. My father stepped forward. This is not the place. Margaret looked at the watching families and seemed to realize what she had done. She turned and walked away quickly. Adrian remained. I'm sorry, he said. I did not know whether he meant for his mother, the scandal, Sienna, or us. For what? I asked. His mouth opened. No answer came. That was the problem. He regretted the outcome, but he still could not name the harm. I hope you figure it out, I said. Then I returned to my family photographs. Sienna's downfall was quieter. Without Adrian's academic record attached to hers, the image of Westbridge's perfect couple disappeared almost immediately. Her friends defended her online for a week, then stopped when sponsors withdrew from the lifestyle account she had been building. She posted a tearful video claiming she had suffered from pressure and emotional manipulation. She said an unnamed person had encouraged her to believe cheating was the only way to preserve her future. No one had to guess who she meant. Adrian responded with screenshots showing that she proposed the plan. Their private messages became public entertainment. Sienna accused him of coercion. Adrian accused her of using him. Margaret accused Sienna's parents. Sienna's father threatened the Coles with a lawsuit. The two people who had promised to attend Harvard together could no longer remain in the same room. I watched none of the videos. Maya summarized the important parts despite my objections. They broke up, she announced one afternoon. We knew that was coming. She told him his sacrifice was his choice. I stopped highlighting a textbook passage. The sentence was nearly identical to what I had told him. Maya watched me. That hit a nerve. No, I closed the book. It closed a circle. Adrian had wanted Sienna because he imagined she would value what he risked for her. Instead, she refused responsibility the same way he did. They were mirrors facing each other, each reflecting blame forever. I chose to step out of the room. The first morning I woke in Cambridge, sunlight fell across a desk that had never belonged to Adrian. My dorm room was small. One wall was exposed brick. The radiator clanked unpredictably. My roommate, Naomi Brooks, had covered her side with photographs, theater posters, and a string of yellow lights. Nothing matched. Nothing was perfect. I loved it. Move-in day had been chaotic. My father assembled a bookshelf backward. Mom cried in the dining hall, then denied it. Maya video called from her university in California and made me turn the phone around so she could inspect every corner. When my parents finally left, I stood in the courtyard beneath old brick buildings and felt the weight of two lives. In the first, Adrian had been beside me. We had taken photographs at the gate, chosen classes together, and built a shared routine so quickly that I never learned who I was alone. In the second, I entered by myself. I was frightened. Freedom was not the absence of fear, it was the chance to move while afraid. I chose computer science and applied mathematics. I joined a student group working on accessible emergency technology. I took a seminar on ethical artificial intelligence and spent too many nights debugging code in a basement lab. I made mistakes no one could blame on Adrian. That mattered more than I expected. My first programming project failed during a live demonstration. I wanted to disappear. Then my professor sat beside me, reviewed the error, and said, "Good. Now you know where the system breaks." Failure became information instead of shame. By sophomore year, I helped design a voice-activated emergency platform that could detect distress phrases even when a user could not reach a phone. The idea had lived inside me since the kitchen floor. Though no one knew, we named the prototype Beacon. When it successfully connected a simulated caller to emergency services during our first public test, I went into the restroom and cried, not for Adrian, for the woman I had been, reaching toward a phone. She could not touch, I could not save her, but I could build something in her memory. My parents visited often. Maya came during winter break. Naomi became the kind of friend who knocked once, entered with coffee, and refused to let me isolate when deadlines became overwhelming. I dated carefully. The first boy was kind but wanted more time than I could give. We ended things without cruelty. The second was brilliant and competitive, and I recognized too quickly how he turned every disagreement into a contest. I left after 3 months. Each ending taught me that leaving did not require catastrophe. Sometimes incompatibility was enough. News from Westbridge reached me indirectly. Sienna enrolled in a community college, dropped out after 1 semester, and shifted her energy toward social media. Her beauty still opened doors, but the cheating scandal followed every search of her name. She built an audience by presenting herself as a victim of academic pressure, then lost it when former classmates challenged inconsistencies in her story. Adrian spent a year preparing to retake the SAT, then postponed. Without teachers, teammates, or the structure of Westbridge, his discipline collapsed. He tried to launch an online tutoring business, but parents found the scandal. He worked at a sporting goods store and avoided the neighborhood whenever school was dismissed. Margaret continued telling people that he would return stronger. In my first life, hearing of his decline would have satisfied me. At Harvard, it became background noise. My life grew too large to organize around his failure. During junior year, Beacon won a university innovation grant. During senior year, a hospital network agreed to pilot the system in maternity wards and home care programs. The choice felt deliberate. At the presentation, I stood before physicians, engineers, and investors and explained how a user in physical crisis might lose access to a device. The software could detect a predefined phrase, a fall, or abnormal breathing, and initiate a response protocol. A doctor in the front row asked, "What inspired this?" For years, I had answered with technical language. This time, I said, "A woman who needed help and couldn't reach it." It was the closest I came to speaking about my first death. After the presentation, a venture fund offered to support further development. My advisor hugged me. Naomi cried. My parents watched through a live stream from home. That evening, I walked alone beside the Charles River. Graduation was 2 months away. In my first life, this had been the year Adrian proposed. He had taken me to the library courtyard and placed a diamond ring in my hand. I had thought the future was certainty. Now uncertainty stretched in every direction, and it felt beautiful. My phone vibrated. An unknown number had sent a message. "Adrian, I saw the Beacon article. Congratulations." I stared at the screen. For years had passed since our conversation in the bookstore. He had not contacted me directly since. A second message appeared. "Adrian, I'll be in Boston next month. I need to ask you something." I should have deleted it. Instead, a cold sensation moved through me, the same one I had felt when he first said Sienna wanted help cheating. Some circles did not close quietly. Adrian came to Boston the week before graduation. I agreed to meet him in a crowded cafe near campus, in daylight. After sending the location and time to Naomi, I was no longer a woman who accepted private confrontations for the sake of politeness. He arrived early. At 22, he still had the face that made people glance twice, but the polished certainty was gone. His hair was longer, shadows darkened his eyes. He wore a plain black coat and held a paper cup between both hands. For a moment, I saw the 18-year-old boy waiting outside the guidance office. Then I remembered the man on the sofa. "Evelyn," he said. "Adrian." I sat across from him. He looked through the window toward the university buildings. "You made it." "Yes, you always would have. That isn't what your mother believed." A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. My mother believes many things. We sat in silence. I had imagined this meeting in different ways. In some versions, he begged, in others, I delivered a perfect speech and walked away while he collapsed beneath the weight of regret. Reality was smaller. 2 former classmates sat at a cafe table while an espresso machine hissed behind the counter. What did you want to ask? I said, his fingers tightened around the cup. Do you ever dream about another life? Every sound in the cafe seemed to sharpen. I kept my face still. What kind of life? One where we both went to Harvard, we got married, we bought a townhouse. My heartbeat struck once. Hard. Adrian looked at me. His gray eyes were filled with fear. In the dream, he continued, you were pregnant. It was raining. You asked me to take you to the hospital. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. When did you start having these dreams? After graduation. At first they were fragments. Then, last winter, I remembered everything. Everything. My daughter. The phone beneath the table, his satisfaction. He leaned forward. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. A laugh escaped me, quiet and sharp. Which life? His face crumpled. You remember too. I did not answer. He whispered, why didn't you stop me? There it was for years, 2 lives, and thousands of consequences later. Adrian still began with the same question. I looked at him carefully. Because I stopped you the first time. Tears filled his eyes. You knew what would happen. I knew what could happen. You knew too, but you let me throw everything away. No, my voice remained calm. You threw it away. I refused to stand beneath it and be crushed with you. He shook his head. In the first life, I was angry. I thought if Sienna had gone to Harvard with me, I would have been happy. I thought you stole that future. You killed me for it. He flinched as if I had struck him. I know. You took my phone. I know. You watched me beg while our daughter died. His tears spilled over. I know. The people at the next table glanced toward us. I lowered my voice. Then tell me why I should have saved you again. I was different at 18. No. At 18, you already wanted someone else to carry responsibility for your choices. In the first life, I carried it. In this one, Sienna carried it until she refused. Then your mother. Then me again. He covered his face with one hand. I lost everything. You lost a score, several applications, and the image people had of you. You were still alive. You still had choices. No school wanted me. Community colleges accepted you. I couldn't face people. That was pride, not impossibility. His hand dropped. Anger flickered beneath the grief. It's easy for you to say, you got the perfect score. Harvard, awards, your company. None of that was easy. You had a clean record, because I did not cheat. He looked away. Outside, students crossed the street carrying backpacks and graduation gowns. I wondered how many of them had failed exams, changed majors, lost relationships, or rebuilt after mistakes no one else could see. Adrian had been given a second life inside a second life. After the scandal, he could have started again. Instead, he treated shame as proof that the world owed him rescue. What happened to Sienna? I asked, his expression closed. We haven't spoken in years. That wasn't my question. He stared at the table. She moved to Los Angeles. She's doing promotional work and trying to rebuild her channel. She is alive. Yes. Relief moved through me. In the original path of his resentment, violence had always waited at the end. Whether memory had changed him or circumstance had interrupted him, Sienna was alive. That mattered. Adrian looked up. I came because I thought if you remembered, maybe we could fix what happened. What do you mean by fix? Start over. The audacity was so complete that I felt no anger at all. You want another chance with me? We were happy once. No, I was happy because I did not know you hated me. I didn't hate you every day. That is not the defense you think it is. His face twisted. I loved you. You loved being forgiven. You loved being admired. You loved that I made your life stable. When stability felt like a cage, you blamed the person holding the door open. He began to cry again, but the tears no longer moved me. In my first life, I had believed his pain made me responsible for soothing it. In my second, I understood that witnessing pain did not create a debt. I stood. Adrian reached across the table, then stopped before touching me. What am I supposed to do? He asked. The question was the same one he had asked in the bookstore, but something in his voice had changed. Less accusation, more emptiness. Live, I said, study somewhere that will take you, work, apologize without expecting forgiveness, stop using regret as another way to avoid responsibility. And us, there is no us. He closed his eyes. I placed enough money beside my untouched coffee to cover both drinks at the door. He called my name. I turned once. I am sorry, he said, for the exam, for blaming you, for our daughter. For what I did while you were dying. It was the apology he should have begun with. It did not change my decision. I believe you are sorry, I said, but forgiveness does not mean access. Then I left. 1 week later, I crossed the graduation stage in a black gown with crimson trim. My parents cheered from the audience. Maya and Naomi shouted my name. My advisor placed a hand over her heart as I accepted my degree. Beacon's hospital pilot launched that summer. Within a year, the system helped route emergency assistance to patients who could not reach their phones. Each successful alert felt like a small light sent backward through time. I never saw Adrian again. I heard that he eventually enrolled in a state college, studied accounting, and moved away from Westbridge. Margaret stopped attending neighborhood events. Sienna rebuilt a smaller online career under a different name. Their lives continued, so did mine. People often describe rebirth as revenge. A chance to watch enemies fall and claim the prizes they once denied you. For me, rebirth was simpler. It was my mother's handwriting on a lunch note, my father checking a calculator twice, Maya saving me a seat, a dorm room that belonged only to me, a program that could call for help when someone's voice was all they had left. It was learning that love did not require rescue, and that another person's choices were not chains around my future. In my first life, I died waiting for Adrian to save me. In my second, I stopped waiting, and the moment I did, my life finally began.